Stills. Football Eve, right? I love it, man. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now Monday. Fantastic, man. We are going to get an appetite of football for the next couple days, and I cannot wait. By the way, bottom of the hour, Merrill Reese will join us. The legendary voice of the Philadelphia Eagles, and our Football Insider Hall of Fame voter, Jason Cole, will join us at 5:30 Eastern. So we're pretty packed. Please, either just sit and listen, join us any way you want. I know you have so many options out there, and we appreciate it each and every single day that you come aboard with us here. All right, I want to start out by doing this, and we're going to start out on a great note today. Boy, I'll tell you what. If I was sitting in a locker next to Fletcher Cox, and I heard Fletcher Cox say this, man, I'll tell you what, this kid right here should have been the first player taken in the NFL draft. I'm going to look over at that, and what a motivating moment that is for a young player like Jalen Carter. To hear that kind of confidence in me, and to hear that kind of comment that he's making about me to the media, having only seen me in a handful of practices and some game situations with these organized team activities, it's quite a compliment. That's quite a compliment. I mean, if you watch him, Jalen Carter, let me put this out here to you. When I watch Mazi Smith, the D tackle for the Cowboys, and I watch Jalen Carter, it's not close. They look like two different dudes. Mazi Smith looks fat, out of shape, and slow. Jalen Carter looks like a star that just needs to do it. And you see why a guy like Fletcher Cox, dude, players like Fletcher Cox just don't go like this. This guy looks like a great football player. He should have been the number one player in the NFL draft. Boy, do I take that and put a stamp on it. If Fletcher Cox is saying that, I know I'm right about this guy. Holy cow. Is that cool? I'm going to expand even more here in a minute. You got the veteran guys in that locker room motivating the younger ball players and encouraging. What a great environment the Eagles have. Fletcher's so confident in his career and who he is. I was glad to hear him say he'd like to play between 40 and 45 snaps. I probably think the Eagles would like to have that number down a little more, around 30 to 40, somewhere in there, so they could get Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter on the field. You want to see those two guys more on the field this year than you do want to see Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox. I do, because that's your future. I'm not going to put that at the expense of the present, but that's my future, man. Davis and Carter are my future. Okay? They're your future. To hear him say that, man, that's great stuff. It's great confidence building. Let me tell you something. I'm going to say it one more time to you. Veteran players can look at a guy and maybe take a day to go, I don't know. And then you look at a guy and you go, wow, holy shit. You see that first step? Dude, you know what's funny? When you're looking at a defensive tackle, the first step kind of is symbolic, because if he has it, you can build on it. If he doesn't have quickness off the ball, you cannot play in that league. I don't care if you're a kicker. You cannot play in that league if you're not quick off the ball, offense or defense. If you don't have quick twitch, man, I'm telling you, you can't play. You just can't. And when I watch Mazi Smith for the Cowboys and I hear them talking about him, I'm like, I don't see what they're looking at. I see a guy who's going to get the shit blocked out of him. You put Mazi Smith, the first-round draft choice, in a game against the Eagles, they will block that guy's dick into the dirt. It will not be close. Jason Kelce will kill that guy. You can't be slow with Dickerson and Kelce and Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steve. You can't let the offensive lineman be a better athlete than you. The better athletes are usually on the defensive line side. You see, that's what you got. That's a premium in Philly. Your offensive linemen are some of your greatest athletes. That's unheard of. Your two bookend offensive tackles could easily be your best athletes on the team. Nobody moves at that size like that. Jordan Mailata at 6'8", 350 pounds, that's Shaq O'Neal stuff. Lane Johnson, the way he moves, I mean, these two guys you could play defensive tackle. They got great athletes in the O-line in Philly. They really took it to the Browns from what I understand in the second practice. And they really did a great job against the Browns. Both sides of the ball, you heard a little bitching from the offensive guard for the Cleveland Browns. And, hitting Deshaun Watson late, good. You're building an attitude up. You're building an identity up. You don't like it? Fight him. You don't like him? Block him. I like it. Slapping the ball out of his hand. Well, that stuff that's not supposed to. Hey, shut up, dude. Win some games. If you were the Kansas City Chiefs, I guarantee you the Eagles aren't going to do that to Mahomes because they respect him. Eagles don't respect Deshaun Watson for numerous reasons. They don't respect it. They don't respect it. Okay? Who are you? We're the Eagles. Who are you? We went to the Super Bowl. You were in the outhouse. You don't deserve our respect. I love that attitude. Hey, man, we're winners. What have you done since you've been in Cleveland? Nothing. Don't talk to me about respect. You get respect by winning ball games. I like what's going on here, man. Now, let me get to Devontae Smith. His legend continues to grow. And Darius Slay's now saying he's going to be the best wide receiver in the National Football League when everything is said and done. That would not shock me. That would not shock me. By the way, how many people think Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the NFL? This pisses me off when I hear this. You really think Justin Jefferson is better than A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? How many people think Justin Jefferson's better? Honestly, how many Roland goes I do? I've never seen more meaningless yards and catches by a football player in Minnesota in my life since Tim Brown. They're meaningless yards. The wide receiver position is the only position in the NFL where we look at the numbers and the catches and go with statistics alone on what makes those guys 1, 2, 3, or 4, not meaningful catches. Not games where you show up and you're a star in. Not a game where you just take over like Chris Carter or Randy Moss or Jerry Rice. Just take over games. Have you ever seen Justin Jefferson take over a meaningful game? I haven't. I have never seen Devontae Adams take over me. I've seen Cooper Kupp do it. I think Kupp's numbers outside of that 1 year pedestrian, but he's a good player. Quick twitch, quick in the route, quick in the turn, runs great routes. He's a really good receiver. But the wide receiver position is the only position in the NFL where we look at numbers and go, Tyreek Hill's better than him. That's not true. We don't do that with quarterbacks. Why would we do that with wide receivers? I'll tell you why. Because fantasy football pollutes most people's brains. They think because you have the most yards means you're the better player. That's not true. Shit, those two guys in Philly went to the Super Bowl. And you know how they did it? 1 week it's you, 1 week it's me. 1 week it's you, 1 week it's me. You know what Justin Jefferson did? He piled up a lot of yards that went nowhere. That went nowhere. Markey goes, Jefferson went for 180 yards in his debut game. And? No one's saying he's not good. But there's things called meaningful games where you show up and you have meaningful yards. Here. Jalen Hurts is 350 yards or whatever it was passing in the Super Bowl does not compare to the meaningful yards that Patrick Mahomes had in the Super Bowl. You know why? He won. He won. Jalen outplayed him. No, he didn't. He lost. Jalen kept him in it. Yes. How many times have you seen Tom Brady go for 187, win the game? I saw Tom Brady against you guys throw for almost 500 yards in a Super Bowl and lose. What was more meaningful? The 500 yards and a loss to the Eagles? Or the 154 that he had, I think, against the Rams? Come on, man. Every time I hear people talking about why, watch this. Tyreek Hill, how many people think Tyreek Hill is better than Devontae? The Chiefs don't think so. The Chiefs told him to walk. Hit the curb, dude. We don't need you. They won a game with Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster, according to all you experts out there, you guys tell me, with all you experts, that Juju Smith-Schuster's nowhere near Tyreek Hill. Well, shit. Tyreek Hill's got a ring the same way that Juju Smith-Schuster's got a ring. The same way Tyreek Hill's got a ring. The wide receiver position is the most overrated position in pro football. When it comes to looking how you look at meaningful yards and how you rank these guys. Let me ask you this. Who would you really rather have in a game that you had to win? Julian Edelman or Deebo Samuel? Who would you rather have in a game you had to have? Who would you rather have? Mike is laughing. Well, he was a Super Bowl MVP. You know, Brady throws him the ball, you still have to catch it. In traffic. Getting your ass kicked. Deebo? How come Edelman has the most catches in the postseason of any wide receiver in NFL history in the Super Bowl? And the most yards and an MVP, and he will not be considered at all for the Hall of Fame, ever. There's guys you can count on, there's guys that get meaningful yards, and there's guys that give you fool's gold. Look at Antonio Brown's numbers. The big-time wide receiver is overhyped. Maybe not overrated, but overhyped. Well, he had 1,800 yards and 140 catches. So he must be better than A.J. Brown. Well, I wouldn't say that. How does he fit into that offense? I mean, how about this? Let's put A.J. Brown's numbers into perspective. So the Eagles had the second best running attack in the league, and he had 1,500 yards receiving and 90-plus receiving catches. Shit, dude. That guy was a massive impact on a team that's versatile. They run the ball, they throw the ball. I mean, how many teams in the NFL can beat you with dual threat opportunities to run it down your throat or throw it down your throat? Right? I mean, to me, I look at guys who make premium catches in premium moments. I'll tell you the greatest big time. Dude, I'm never going to take Travis Kelce over Gronkowski. There's not a chance in their prime I'm taking Travis Kelce over Gronk is a joke. Gronk is a big-time playmaking, blocking tight end who beat the living shit out of people both in the secondary and on the line of scrimmage. That guy is a weapon. He's the greatest tight end to ever play the game. Played it with reckless abandon. You couldn't defend him and had Chris Carter hands. Hey, look, is the benefit having Brady? Of course. Of course. You got a quarterback that gets the ball to you on time. You still got to catch it. The quarterback is the most dependable position in pro football. Do you understand that? The line's got to block. Center's got to get the ball to you. You got to not trip getting back or sacked getting back to your drop. And then you got to pray your wide receiver runs a right route. Then you got to pray your wide receiver catches it. Then you got to pray your wide receiver can turn up and get some yak yards for you. All those things have to happen for a quarterback to have a successful play. When you're a defensive lineman, you beat the guard in front of you, get to the quarterback, and you kill him. I mean, A.J. Brown is a weapon. Tennessee couldn't figure out what to do with him. Can you believe that, what the Eagles have done? The Eagles did two things here, pretty remarkable. They figured out Hassan Reddick, and they figured out the jigsaw puzzle of A.J. Brown as well. Okay? They figured those two jigsaw puzzles out. Actually, three last year. CJ, too. What were the Saints are looking for a slot corner now? They're looking for a slot corner, and they had him on the roster. Eagles spotted it, identified it. So they figured out Gardner Johnson, and then they turned around and figured out Hassan Reddick, and they knew how to utilize A.J. Brown with Tennessee. So Tennessee didn't know what they were doing. Arizona, Carolina didn't know, and the Saints didn't know. Man, that is talent evaluation in your pro personnel people. That's how you win ball games, and economically cheap. Everyone in Philly's going, well, Hassan Reddick's underpaid. Sorry, dude. Okay, sorry, Howie won that one. Victor goes to spoils, man. He got it. He figured it out. He should be rewarded with a lesser contract for a player. He figured it out. That's why he figured out Gardner Johnson, $837,000, making $7 million now. Okay, see ya. They landed on TJ, but they were smart enough to put him in. Okay? Twiz goes to offense ran through Henry. Well, Jesus, man. Then why did you turn around and give $14 million now to DeAndre Hopkins? You know why, Twiz? They realized how wrong they were to let A.J. Brown go. They're covering A.J. Brown's mistake with DeAndre Hopkins. That's what they're in with an older player. You let a 25-year-old guy out the building for $4 million that they ended up giving to Hopkins. How did that not make – that makes no sense. They're covering their tracks there with that. That's right. The new GM covered for the mistake of the past general manager, who was a hell of a general manager. Absolutely. Mel Reese is going to join us at the bottom of the hour here. Got a boatload of questions to ask him. By the way, we got a boatload of questions to ask you as well. He got fired the day after AJ torched him. Not a shocker, man. Not a shocker. I think Mike Vrabel's next, maybe in Tennessee. I want to show you something here. I wrote a list down here. And I want to ask you this. Before we get Merrill Reese on here, I wrote down the guys that you guys have to replace on defense to be a really good unit. And we've talked about numbers before. How about we look at it as a group instead of just looking at it singly? Okay? We look at the macro here. So Edwards, 99 tackles. Solo, 60, 159. We're assuming Dean does that, right? Or you are. Epps, 92 tackles from the safety position. 68 solo. That's a heck of a year. No wonder he got a nice contract with the Raiders. You know, he may have been the most unsung hero, along with TJ Edwards, on that football team last year defensively. May have been Epps. Dude, I loved him in the spring of last year. If many of you guys remember, I said, I want to give this guy an opportunity. And he was a good ball player last year. There's another guy that flies under the radar that did a lot of the ugly work in the game. See, you guys look at sacks and interceptions, but you don't look at the guys who really did a lot of the dirty work here. Edwards, Epps, and White did all the dirty work. They did all the dirty work. Kaiser White, 110 total tackles. 159, 92, 110. 1, 2, and 3 in tackles. So Murrow, Terrell Edmonds, and Dean have to replace Edwards, Epps, and White. Then you get to the fourth guy. I didn't realize this about CJ. CJ was the fourth leading tackler on the Eagles. 67. We're assuming Reed. And then you got Hardgrave, who was the seventh leading tackler on the Eagles with 60 and 11 sacks. And we're looking at Carter. Throw Carter in there because Davis will never put those numbers up. How do you feel about replacing all that production with the current guys you got on the roster? You see, when Sully says Epps was getting ran over a lot, then why didn't they replace him with Reed Blankenship? When you guys say that and you throw dirt on a guy who performed exceptionally last year to try to make it sound good for the guy that's there today, you're doing him a service to what the expectations truly have to be. Okay? This is the barometer for you to be, again, in the top 5. You've got to replace this production the same way the running backs have to replace the production of Miles Sanders. And you have to replace the production and the level of play of Isaac Seumalo. Okay? Sidney and Blankenship will be on par with that? Okay. So your expectations for Sidney Brown is 92 tackles this year. And for, who did you say? And for Blankenship, those two guys are going to have to cover, maybe two guys could cover 92 tackles. Micah, this is not fear-mongering. This is a conversation, dude. This is not fear. Where am I saying fear? Have I even thrown shade? I'm asking you a question. I am not throwing dirt or shade on anybody here. I'm asking you, how do you feel about replacing 5 of the top 7 tacklers on your team with the current guys you have right now? How do you feel about that? See, a guy like Joseph here wants to hear people talk like they're cheerleaders. Again, these are just facts. So how do you feel about replace? How about this? Let's just take Nakobe Dean's name out of it, not talk about him, because I see you guys get a little upset. You think you're Mike linebacker, and the current position of Mike linebacker is set. How many people think the Mike linebacker's set right now? Myra goes like this: 0 facts. Here are the facts right here. This is not an opinion. I'm asking you about replacing a ton of production. This is facts. This has nothing to do with an opinion or anything. I'm going to talk about Sydney. Okay? CJ goes, I don't trust. No. CJ, I forget who made this comment, Tone, yesterday or the day before. I want to know why the Eagles feel so comfortable and confident with the guys that are going to replace these men, and I'd like to see them tomorrow night against Cleveland. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying they won't. But I want to know why you feel comfortable that you have to replace 5 veteran players who were productive, and 3 of them did all the dirty work, with guys that have never played. I think Reed Blankenship can definitely cover the tackles that the Eagles lose with Epps and CJ leaving. When Blankenship started 4 games while CJ was here, he was able to put up 34 total tackles. Okay. See? That's the kind of answer I want to hear. I think Reed can do it. My question would have been, why wouldn't they have worked him in more, knowing, well, then again, you know what? Maybe with Gardner Johnson, they were still under the notion last year that he was going to be a major target that they were going to bring back in free agency once he became a free agent in March. Probably one of the reasons why Reed didn't get even more playing time. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to move guys in because you know you're replacing. Okay, so you're trying to get playing time for the guys behind him, because eventually once you get to the offseason, you're going to have to make a financial decision. So they probably thought at the time that they were bringing Gardner Johnson back. They probably believed that was the plan, and then it changed with the way the whole chaotic offseason went with Slay and him barking, and probably them watching more film on him as well. Okay? So as the season was going on, they were probably like, yeah, you know, he's part of the future. And Tone goes, they didn't see they didn't see Epps either. So to that point, good. That's where I'm coming from with this conversation. I'm not trying to tell you don't have the people. I'm trying to tell you what's in store for you and what to look for. This is not saying you can't. This is saying this is a pretty tall order for Sean Desai. That's all I'm doing here. Have I said you can't? I think it's going to, hey, I haven't thrown an opinion in yet in it. Okay? I haven't thrown an opinion. I'm just saying this is what's in store for the general manager and the D coordinator. Pete Toilet goes, Sills, I think we play a lot of big nickel to cover up a lack of linebacker. Putting Sidney Brown out there, I like that idea. I actually like that idea. Put a big body guy out there like that, roam him around like a John Lynch back there or a Cam Chancellor. I actually like that. That's creative thinking. That's creative thinking. I like that. Is Desai going to do that? I'll tell you what's becoming more apparent. The influence of Matt Patricia. Let me tell you why. What's the one thing they did in New England besides all the disguise coverages? Man, they love those hybrid guys. And they moved guys all around. Troy Brown used to play wide receiver and defensive back in New England. How many times did you see them putting guys on offense, defense, being creative with players, skill sets that might fit maybe another position, putting Jordan Davis in a 5 technique? I didn't see that coming. Maybe they're trying to find a way to get him one-on-one with someone. Fantastic. If you're going to start doing shit like that, that tells me they're thinking a little more out of the box with their current players, and they believe they're more athletic than what they were a year ago. Jonathan Gannon would never have flirted with putting Brown in a slot or putting Sidney Brown in a slot or anyone else in a slot. He would never have done that. He's not a creative guy. He's a plug-and-play coordinator. Okay? He's a plug-and-play guy. He's got a system. He's going to run it. With the personnel he has, come hell or high water, he's going to live on that vine. I hate coaches like that because you know what that means? There's no in-game adjustments with players like that, with people like that too. That means you're a horrible in-game adjustment guy. Okay? Like I said, there's a lot of production to be replaced here. I'll tell you one thing that is becoming evident too in the practices and in the conversations that I'm having. You actually might have a more versatile defense this year than you did a year ago. Okay? You actually might. Hey, Tone, can you send Merrill a link, please? Thank you, brother. Yeah. Just tell Merrill here he's ready to rock here with us. So let me just say. Got it. Hey, you can't keep the legend waiting, right? Thank you, Tone. Hey, I get it, Tone. I get it. I would say this to you. Let's see how this looks. And what I would also say, don't show too much. Don't show too much against Cleveland. My big concern is New England right now. They're watching everything you're doing. And get this, they're going to be watching the films on the Browns. They're going to be getting the inter-practice games, the organized team activities. They're going to be doing all that. So they're going to get the opportunity to really break down a lot of things that they're doing, because there's no question nowadays more people are taking these organized team activities and they're taking them more. And they're looking at these organized practices a lot more. And boy, I'll tell you, Josh Sweat is having a great camp. Josh Sweat is continuing to have a fabulous camp. He is a really good football player. He is getting better and better and better and better and better every single time that he tees it up against people. I hear nothing but raved reviews about the development that he has right now and how he's becoming a 3-down lineman. His pass rushing techniques are getting better. I mean, his run ability, his ability to set the edges is getting 10 times better. He is, you know what? It would not shock me if he makes the Pro Bowl this year or is a Pro Bowl guy, because he's a special football player. I think he's going to have an absolutely – he's not received it yet, Tone. Yeah, maybe if you give him a call, please, so we can get this going here. He's waiting for us here, and he's not received any of the emails at any of them. So hopefully we can make this happen here. I really like what we're seeing with him. And Tracy says that his get off is better, his edge plays better. I absolutely love the fact that he's really stepping into it. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake. Josh Sweat has gotten better and better and better and better and better. And Tracy's telling me how much he's getting better. I'll say one more thing before I bring Merrill Reese in. I said that Jalen Carter will be the next Jerome Brown. I said that on draft day. And when you hear a player like Fletcher Cox going like this, wow, this kid should have been the first pick in the draft. If I was sitting next to him and he said that to me, I'd look over at him and go, holy cow, does that motivate me? I'll tell you what motivates me is our good friend Merrill Reese, and he joins us now here on the National Football Show. Merrill, how about those comments, man? I mean, Fletcher Cox going like this, man. I mean, he sees Jalen Carter, and he goes, this kid should have been the first player drafted in the National Football League. And I'm just hearing he's having a great camp, and he's living up to all the expectations of what people thought his game was going to be. Now he just has to go out and do it.
Well, Dan, I think he probably would have been the first player picked in the NFL draft had it not been for the tragedy, the incident.
I do too. And you know what I love about the environment too, Merrill? I love the fact that you're hearing Darius Slay go, man, this Devontae Smith kid is going to be the best wide receiver in the league. You've got Fletcher making these comments. You got Kelsey talking about Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen and all these guys. It really shows the leadership in that building.
Dan, there's a lot of leadership in that building. There's a young player. I mean, you're talking about Jalen Carter, of course, but there's another guy out there, the third Eagles draft choice, who I'm going to tell you is going to be a star, and that is Sidney Brown, the safety out of Illinois. He reminds me, and it's always a dangerous thing to say things like this, but just take it to mean there's a feeling I get after watching him for practice after practice. We haven't played a regular game yet, but he reminds me of a young Brian Dawkins. He is a hellacious hitter. He's got tremendous intensity. He's bright and he's dedicated.
You know, I watched him play, and I went back and watched the 22. And I got to tell you, watching him, he runs through tackles like Brian, not two tackles. He's aggressive. He's got a great attitude. They've got to figure a way, in my opinion, to get him on the field, because if you may be a little bit limited at linebacker, I'll tell you what, I'd like to have him play out there like a little bit like Cam Chancellor and like Brian did. And you have him out there like John Lynch roaming around in the middle of that, in that zone back there. Because I'll tell you what, he has a lot of I want to see more of him, and I want to see them get him in the game. I was really impressed with the kid Ricks too in the first game against the Ravens as well.
Well, it's amazing that he wasn't drafted.
I mean, you know what, Merrill? You know what I took away? I took away from that Ravens game this. I was pleasantly surprised by the secondary. And I thought you'd be thin there, but the way that they were talking and going back and forth, and again, like you said, it's not so much that it's an exhibition game, but you're watching them communicate, moving guys over. They're echoing the calls down the line of scrimmage. I think that's a little bit of Matt Patricia and Desai. I think there's some pretty good coaching going on out there. And I think you guys may be a little bit more versatile this year on defense. You may not be as experienced, but you may be a little more versatile and a little more athletic this year.
I think you're right. I think the talent level has improved. I mean, you lost a good man in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I mean, he was a big part of last year's success, but they've brought in some real talent, and I think it's going to pay off. What you add to that defense with Jalen Carter, and you bring in Sidney Brown, I mean, right there, those are two big pluses.
Let me ask you this. Nolan Smith.
Oh, and Nolan Smith. Nolan,
Hey,
how can I forget? We're talking about the other guys, but Nolan Smith is also going to be a tremendous, tremendous part of that pass rush.
and what I saw in him, his first game, I saw this. This is what I would tell him. Calm down, slow down. It's going to come to you. Sometimes, Merrill, when you're a rookie and you're a high draft choice, you got a lot of expectations on you, and he kind of looked like a rookie a little bit. I think the game will come to him again. If I'm him, he's got a perfect role model in Hassan Reddick to sit there and watch and really learn from.
Yeah, yeah. Haas was great. Haas had 19 and a half sacks last year, including the playoffs. So he is somebody to model yourself after. But Nolan Smith is another guy with a lot of personality and a lot of passion for the game.
I want to throw this at you here. And to me, my biggest concern on your team is Nakobe Dean.
Shouldn't be, Dan. He's
34
special.
snaps.
I'm telling you.
He's got to replace 160 tackles, Merrill.
Don't worry about that. This kid is bright. This kid is athletic. I don't have any concern at all about Nakobe Dean.
The fact that he's hurt a little bit?
A little bit's the key word. He's okay. He'll be fine.
How about Marcus Epps? Do you feel comfortable that Edmonds and Brown and some of these other guys may be able to replace 92 tackles?
Well, again, you're talking about statistics. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Edmonds yet. I know he had some good years in Pittsburgh. I know he was the number one draft pick, but I haven't seen enough of him to really judge, quite frankly. And let's face it, you talk about a number of tackles. There's no tackling at training camp. Nobody tackles to the ground. I don't know. Other cities they might, but they don't tackle much here. But I think they've got the talent. And again, I mentioned Sidney Brown. I think Sidney Brown will be better than Epps.
I'll tell you somebody that I was impressed with, and I only saw him limited time, and that was DeAndre Swift. Let me tell you this. This kid moving around, Merrill, the way he is elusive, I'll tell you this. If they get that guy 800 yards rushing and 400 yards receiving and 50 catches, what a find. I mean, he is a smaller version of Brian Westbrook. If you can put that guy out there like that, can you imagine putting Brian Westbrook on this offense? Because I think he's a little like that.
It's so funny to hear you say that, because Tuesday night or Monday night, I was sitting there standing there at practice with Brian Westbrook, and Brian Westbrook was marveling about DeAndre Swift. He said, "I just love him." I mean, he said, "Now you see it, now you don't back." He's elusive. How about that room, Dan? There are a couple of very good football players who aren't going to make this roster. When you look at four like DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, and then Boston Scott, who's just dynamic, and Kenny Gainwell, who played well last year. Those are four great backs. And then you have Trey Sermon, who's a pretty good back, and Lincoln Kennedy behind them. It's a loaded room.
Couple last questions here for you, Merrill. Merrill, tell me this. What's different from this 2023 team that will be different than that 2018 team coming off that Super Bowl win? Why do you have more expectations? Or how about this? I don't know about expectations. More of a positive vibe about this team continuing its success, where that team kind of stumbled coming out of the gate a little bit. What's the difference with this team?
Well, the biggest difference with this team is, number one, Jalen Hurts. He's a top quarterback. He is a terrific quarterback. Now, Carson Wentz in 2017 was maybe the MVP when he went down, but Carson Wentz was not the same player in 2018. He was coming off a torn ACL, a torn MCL, structural damage in his knee, and then he injured a vertebrae. You look at Jalen Hurts, he's coming into the season healthy, and he is such a winner. So you never know. When people say, well, the Eagles, they're a good bet to go back to the Super Bowl, I always say it's a war of attrition. You don't know. Tell me who's going to line up for the Eagles. Tell me who's going to line up for the Cowboys on December 10th. I'll have a better idea. But we don't know. We don't know. But I will tell you, going into this season, this is a better team than that one.
Wow. Okay, finally here. I don't know, man. Maybe the Eagles landed on a quarterback. I was pretty impressed with this Tanner McKee kid, Merrill. I mean, how about the vertical throws down the field there? Now, Mariota probably fits more of the skill set of what the offense is with the RPOs, but I don't know, man. That the kid made me look up and go like this, the kid from Stanford. I was like, yeah, he went on a mission. He's a little older. He kind of handles himself in the pocket pretty well. I was a little bit impressed with him, the way he played in that football game.
I was too, but we're basing it on one preseason game against a bunch of backups. And I'm not taking away any of the credit because he is impressive, but I think it's a little early to make any kind of big, emphatic judgments. And he looks good. He looks like Nick Foles.
Yeah.
He's like Nick Foles. He's about 6'6", and he does have a big arm. But you're right when you say that Marcus Mariota fits this offense better because he can run the RPO, and he's extremely athletic with the ball in his hands, and he's got a strong arm. But for a 6th-round draft choice and to bring in a kid with this ability, I think right now looks like a real good move.
How many years is this now going into for you covering and calling the Eagle games?
96. Can you believe it?
Holy cow, Merrill was back when you rolled your helmet up and put it in your back pocket.
Dan, it's only 47, but who's counting?
My uncle Robustelli used to say this to me, man, because I got a $400,000 signing bonus, Merrill. He didn't make $400,000 in his Hall of Fame MVP career in New York, right? And Andy goes, yeah, you guys today, this and that. And of course, we say that now about the guys today making all the money. And I go, Andy, you didn't play football, man. It was rugby. You guys put the helmet in your back pocket, went out to dinner, and you went to the you went to the bars. And he's like, no. So, I mean, you were back that far, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, my first year was 1977.
So that was right before the Super Bowl 80 year.
Well, yeah, it was Dick Vermeil's second year.
Wow, man. He beat I talked to Dick the other day, man. He told me, he goes, we had 3 days, and he goes, we were just watching guys walk out and quit. It was crazy back in those days because he was turning a culture around.
But
Merrill,
I thought it was crazy last year and the year before, and maybe the year before that, because it was so light. It's an hour and a half practice once a day. But you know what, Dan? You know what the proof of the pudding is? The proof of the pudding is that 22 starters lined up for this team at the Super Bowl.
Merrill, I am totally with you on this. I am not a believer in wrecking routine. If something's working, we're going to stick with it. And if they think that the organized team practices are more important than the exhibition football games, then I'm going to sit here and do this. Well, they were healthy, one of the healthier teams the last 2 years. Maybe that's something that they learned also from 18, right, Merrill?
Mm-hmm.
And they learned a bit because they got banged up in 18 that year. Maybe they said, hey, look, we're not going to go down that route. And they're doing it right. I mean,
it's a different approach.
But it's working. So I'm with you. I don't break routine. I know that, I saw the other day they had like a 45-minute practice. I'm like, it takes 20 minutes to get your gear on. I mean, well, I'm like, man, Coach Vermeil goes like this. He goes,
I don't remember 45 minutes, but I do know that
we slept out in the tents. And then we went to the second practice right there at Pepinroot. And he goes, I know, man. He goes, I don't know how these guys do it today, but we shall see. Merrill, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Dan.
You bet. The legendary Merrill Reese. Yeah, I'm a big believer. If something's working like that, right? Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up, man. There's no reason to. He's sold on Nakobe Dean. Okay, now you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a page out of one of our viewers. I want to know why they're so comfortable and confident. and Dean. I want to know why they're so comfortable and confident. Because I haven't, hey, I will back this up with all of you on him with this. Okay? I will back this up with you. I just want to know why they're comfortable when they haven't seen it. And the only thing you're going on is gut feeling. Okay? Again, it's not shade. Make me feel comfortable while you are. You know, and I was watching Tone and the guys earlier on Sports Take, and everyone's talking about the talent level that's on the team. You got to remember when we're talking about all the new faces that you have, you're really talking about potential. And we're going down potential again. Okay? Potential means you haven't done it. Sean Desai hasn't done it at a top level. There was a little bit of a sample size in Chicago, but nothing really to write home about. So, hey, for tomorrow, do I want to see a ton of Dean? I would like to see 20 plays. Here, let me give you where I'd go. A blind faith is okay to have, Yale. Blind faith is okay to have. It is, because you know why you can have blind faith? Here, I'll tell you why you can have blind faith in Philly. You know why you can have blind faith in Philly? Because they're winning. If you tell a player, I believe in you here, and I think you're going to be able to take the reins from this player here, and when you look back on all the people that they've replaced over the years, and it's been a success, how he's brought people in and made success out of it, you have a litmus test where it's worked, and you have the blind faith. That's why I tell people, and I say this all the time, especially when I'm talking to my Miami Hurricane team. When you got a coach like Jimmy Johnson in your ear, and he's telling you something, and he's telling you to believe that we're going to do this way, and that way, when you know that guy's 51-4 in college football, or he's won 3 Super Bowls in the NFL, you're going to be more apt to listen to that blind faith because you believe that that guy and that Pied Piper is going to carry you through the ranks and get you to where you need to go. Versus people that you keep like when you're in losing organizations, it really doesn't matter who the coach is. Like if you're in Arizona, do you believe anything that Jonathan Gannon says? Okay? Definitely. I called it a year of the Christmas list. As a kid, you want so many things from your Christmas list, but the reality is you don't always get everything you want. When it comes to this team, you have so many high expectations. The reality is every player is not going to hit. Someone will be a disappointment. Here's the thing that happened a year ago, which was the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. Let's take a look at that. Hassan Reddick hit. A.J. Brown hit. Gardner Johnson hit. Kaiser White hit. The 2 backup tackles hit that you signed midway through the season. Zach Pascal hit. Bradbury hit. Go back to your, what was that thing called? The Dream Team? Go back to your Dream Team. Who hit on that team? And you signed just about every superstar there was. I thought Nnamdi Asomugha was going to go to Philadelphia, and I thought Nnamdi Asomugha was going to be a superstar in Philly. He was a turd. I was stunned how bad he played. They gave him a check, and man, I'll tell you what, he cashed it, and he never showed up. That guy never showed up for work. Every time I saw him in a game, it was like he was disinterested, and he didn't want to be out there. We don't talk about Nnamdi Sileo. Hey, there's another guy, man. that this Jesse James used a gun when he robbed banks. That guy went in there with a hand and his head down. How you doing? I'm with you, man. Oh, no, he married a Hollywood actress. I got it, man. He didn't want to get hit anymore. He got the Eagle money. He was excellent with the Raiders. I was like, shit, the Raiders let Nnamdi Asomugha go? Wow. He got the Philly? Wow. He was like that Kerrigan kid. The Kerrigan kid in Washington, I thought he was good. Shit, he got the Philly? Talk about another guy that crapped the bed. Yeah. Let's talk about Nick Bosa holding out. Hey, if Bosa holds out, that totally hurts them. What up, Maniac? How you doing, brother? Yeah, he's an actor now? Okay. Look, the one thing that I want to circle back on with this, I am not telling you that you don't have the potential. I think that's something that I should have probably said a couple weeks ago. Maybe why some of you got mad at me. You have to replace all of this production. Let's take a look at this. Let me add this up here. Okay. You have to replace 490 tackles and 5 guys. You have to replace 490 tackles with 5 dudes. Do you have that on the roster right now? 500 tackles with guys that have never played. And some have never played in this system, and some haven't played together yet, really. Do you have that? Yeah, I'll go. Sidney Brown looks like he likes to tackle. He does. Lovey loves him. Here, one thing about him, remember something about his aggressiveness. You understand something. So wait a minute. Let me throw this at you. I heard Tone talking to D Gunn about this. How do you feel about starting? Are you going to feel good with this? Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Sidney Brown at safety. He's taking snaps with the ones in a first-year or second-year coordinator. So you're going to have no play at NFL except for Jordan Davis in the heart of your defense. You're okay with that? You feel good with that? Carter hasn't played yet. Look, you know I love him. Dean limited role. Davis limited role. Dean no football. Sidney Brown never played either. That's the heart of your defense. You're okay with that? Bill Belichick is going to attack that like you've never seen. He's going to go right at Sidney Brown. He's going to go right at Dean. They're going to run the ball right at those tackles. That's what he does. Some of you think you're going to stop. They're going to stop him. I'm just telling you, rookie quarterbacks don't play well against New England. Not rookie quarterbacks, but rookies don't play well defensively against Bill's guys. Those guys do a great job of identifying the weaknesses on the team. There's not a chance in hell Sidney Brown knows what he's doing yet. There's no chance he knows what he's doing. He's been an Eagle for 4 months. You think he knows what he's doing? You think he even knows how to play in the NFL yet? He hasn't even played it down yet. But you guys are under the assumption he's going to look. I like him too. I want to make sure I back up here and go like this. I like him too. Love Carter. You know that. Okay? Love that. But they're going to attack Nakobe Dean, Sidney. Every time a rookie comes on the field, I told you this before, and I'll say it one more time to you again. you got to remember something. Bill Belichick doesn't attack with his star players. He attacks people offensively and defensively that are new and that are new faces. Like he goes after free agents that have been added to the team, rookies that are playing. He goes after those guys. It's why he has success. There's not a chance in hell Sidney Brown has seen wide receivers or football players at the NFL level that are going to do things schematically and athletically that he saw in the Big Ten. It's not close. It's night and day. When Stephon Diggs or someone like that runs a route versus Sidney Brown, he'll turn him inside out. The key's going to be having some experience back there and not playing so many rookies. I wouldn't want to have that many rookies out there at one time. I want them all playing with experienced dudes. Experience is going to win this year, not athleticism. Not athleticism. Experience beats you in the Super Bowl. Didn't that teach you a lesson? Did that not teach you a lesson? That experience beats you. Not athleticism, not talent. Better coaching, more experience at the quarterback position. That's how they beat you. Okay? That's how they beat you, man. Edmonds will be out there. Hey, I'm good with the Edmonds, Dean, Fletcher, Jordan, bringing Carter in. Carter and Fletcher, that kind of rotation, right. Because then you start seeing guys how they play out there, and you're like, yeah, man, that's good. I like that. Yeah, okay, I got it. Dude, when you play against – hey, when I lined up next to Ed Too Tall Jones and I saw some of the shit that Ed did, I could not believe how I didn't know anything about how to play D-line. He goes, now you got to slide out more, man, because he gets that flat step on you. He's up on the linebacker, and you got to grab him. You could get called for holding. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. He goes, so this is what I do. I cheat to a little bit on the 3 technique on this. And then maybe what I do is I make a quick step inside and kind of false step him. And I'm going like, all of that was all talk. I'm talking to Randy White and then Too Tall Jones. And Leroy Selman's talking to me about how you play the position. And you're going like, yeah, line up in that wide 3, make him take that big jump, come back inside, cross hand chop, swim. Okay. Hey, if I'm Sidney Brown, I'm hanging around Slay and Bradbury. Dude, there's a really great mix, in my opinion. There's a really great mix of veteran guys and young, talented guys. You got a lot of talent. Hey, you got a lot of potential talent. Let me put it that way. You got a lot of potential talent on the team. And like Tone says, are they going to hit 2 years in a row? Well, I'm going to give them the benefit. Let's see it, right? By the way, I wrote these questions down about the Eagle defense. How many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? I got 5 questions about the Eagle defense. I want to hit on those. Don't forget, our boy Jason Cole's going to join us at 5:30. Also, our good friends at Hooters, the official home of the National Football Show in Big Sills. We so love that they are part of the program. And if you're getting your fantasy drafts together, please make sure that you call them and get all of your tables set up because they are limited. And with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday football, make sure you do this. NortheastHooters.com. You'll find the 7 locations there, right? Maybe a location nearest you. The King of Prussia one is the one that we're going to be doing all our events at, and we cannot wait. The iconic Hooter girls are going to be there to serve you. How about some of the great specials? 40-year anniversary. 40-year anniversary. That's right, with Hooters here. You buy 10 wings, you get 10 boneless free. That's Tuesdays. Wednesdays, Wing Wednesdays. This is a 40-year tradition, too, that they have with the Wing Wednesdays, right? All you can eat 1983. Kids eat free on Saturdays. 6 items, $6. Fried pickles, you got to try them. I love the steamers there. The sandwiches are off the charts. Love it. Make sure you go to northeasthooters.com to find one of the 7 locations nearest you. And when you go to Hooters, do me a favor. You tell them Big Sil sent you.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake them out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Hour 2, Big Sills, please hit the like button. Appreciate you all coming aboard. Jim Irsay picked the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts and Anthony Richardson. Man, can you have any more of a destructive? You know, I'll do this here. Jerry's not trying to be destructive. Jim Irsay's a buffoon. You throw a guy into the NFL who had a 51% completion percentage in the Southeastern Conference, and you expect him in the AFC to go into this year. Now, some would say this, Sills, would you rather play the rookies right away and find out what he is versus, you know, sitting him and letting him watch the game? The quarterback position is the most complex position on the field for people to learn. And sometimes you get a better look at it from above. Personally, you know what I would like to do with quarterbacks that are young guys? I don't want them on the sidelines. Maybe a few games on the sidelines. I'd like them up next to the offensive coordinator, watching the game from above, so that they could see what they need to see. And they can see the game from the coordinator's eyes as well. Who's the most important guy that you have to learn from? You have to learn from the coordinator, not the guy who's in front of you. That's the dumbest, stupidest talk I always hear. Well, you want to learn from a veteran guy. Who, like Brett Favre? Brett Favre hated Aaron Rodgers. He didn't want to teach him shit. What do you learn from a guy who hates you? Nothing. You're not engaged. You hate him. You have more of an adversarial relationship with the guy. Seriously, you think Trey Lance is going to learn from Sam Darnold? I would have Trey Lance's ass in the booth with the coordinator watching the game because he sure doesn't have a good view of it on the field. Give him an overview of it. This is what you need to see. This is what you're not seeing. It's wide open. If we have to move you more, can I tell you one of the greatest coaching philosophies I've ever seen with a player was Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger used to slide like this. You know what he was doing? He was creating passing lanes. And they were coaching. Bruce Arians was coaching him to slide him to create passing lanes. They got to create passing lanes in San Francisco for Trey Lance. He can't sit there and run Kyle Shanahan's offense. Do you not see that? No. But because you're so bullheaded and you're so arrogant and you're so ego much of a maniac that you can't go put him up in the booth. Let him watch the game. Sit him. Watch the game. You have to eat Trey Lance now. There's nothing you can do with him. You have to eat that. You totally have to eat that. Let him watch the game. Some of these guys never learned the game from the sidelines. How in the world, if you're not seeing the game from the huddle, are you seeing the game from the sidelines? The only time you learn is when you go to game film on Monday. It's the dumbest coaching stuff. I would never have my backup on the bench unless, again, he was my two and he was my emergency guy and he was kind of getting a grasp. In my opinion, Zach Wilson is now watching Aaron Rodgers on film. Oh. He's watching the game from above because he's watching film and he's watching him. Oh, I see that curl route now, what he's doing on that back shoulder throw. I got it now. I see it now. I mean, how are you going to teach somebody who can't be taught the game on the field? Trey Lance doesn't see in-play games right now. Well, how do you fix that? Film and let him watch the game as it evolves from above. Give him a different view of it. You've got to do something to save that to some extent. You're never going to get the 3-1s back in him. You're just not. And so you got Jim Irsay throwing a quarter. Get this. You got Jim Irsay throwing a quarterback into an RPO situation in Indianapolis where you have to have the same quick thought process and processing process as Jalen Hurts, or you're going to get your fucking head kicked in. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? The only answer is this. Okay? The only answer is this. He has no patience and he's an idiot, or both. Do you understand that Carson Wentz has been the best quarterback that he has had since Carson Wentz and Phillip Rivers have been the best quarterbacks that he has had since Andrew Luck? Those have been his best. This guy's got some fantasy that he knows quarterbacks. If I'm Frank Reich, I'm glad I'm out of there. I'm glad I'm out of there. Why would you want to work in Indianapolis? So Anthony Richardson has an owner who's pissed off the best player on the field, who happens to be in your own huddle, and he names you starter. If you're Gardner Minshew, you must go like this. Wow, this kid's going to get murdered. There's not a chance he's ready. So you throw him in. Who do the Colts play week 1? Please don't let it be somebody great. Please don't let somebody tell me that it's a big time team. Man, I got 5 questions about the Eagle defense. Man, you put that guy in the football game against a quality AFC football team, you're going to get your ass kicked. You're going to get that kid hurt. You're going to get that kid hurt. Just doesn't make sense. I'd like to know, who do the Colts open with? They play the Jags. So you got that defense that's improved coming after Anthony Richardson. Doug Peterson's going to kill that kid. Let me say this to you. Shane Steichen will have a short run as head coach in Indy. Hey, real quick before I move on to the Eagles here. I got to hand it to the Jags and Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. Yale, I don't know if you agree. What's that, Arthur? What were the games, Arthur? Post that again, Arthur. What were their first 3 games? Jags, Texans, Ravens, Rams. Not horrible. Not horrible. Got to do a lot of RPO stuff. Doug Peterson. Jags, Texans, Ravens. Doug, Trevor Lawrence, you 2 men have saved football in Jacksonville. You saved football in Jacksonville. The National Football League has been dying to get that team out of Jacksonville and put it in London for the last 10 years. Nobody goes to the games. Nobody wanted to go to the games. Nobody was interested in the games. Pro football in Jacksonville has been a train wreck outside of maybe 5 meaningful years. Those 2 men may have saved football in Jacksonville. When you get a quarterback like that and you see, you inspire people to want to be part of a process and go, wow, and Doug, a Super Bowl coach. They may have saved football in Jacksonville. I think that's a big deal. How many years have they been sending Jacksonville like to London and trying to get them out of Jacksonville? You know what? Here, how about this? I've talked more Jags in the last 2 years than I have in my last 27 years in broadcasting. I usually I talk about the Jags around the draft. I don't talk about them getting ready to go into a regular season. Kudos to those guys, man. The Jaguars are relevant. Who would have thought that? Of all the teams in Florida, the Jags are the most relevant team next to the Bucs and the Miami Dolphins, 2 teams that have won Super Bowls. And the Jags are the more relevant team. That's a first. Having covered those 3 teams, I've never said this. Oh, the Jaguars are the best team in the state of Florida in the NFL. I don't know if I've ever said that. I don't know if I've ever said that. All right, let's move on to the Eagles. I got 5 questions here. We've talked a lot about the inexperience. I was impressed and excited to see the communication in the Ravens game. I saw guys out there, Ricks and Brown, and I thought Nolan Smith's got a way to go. He's more of a project. Jalen Carter, I think he's going to be everything I said he is. Sweat continues to get better. I think the right guard position's working itself out. I think Swift is going to be a nice addition. So if you're coming away from what you've seen with the first month of practice and you're getting ready for September, you got to feel optimistic about the people that you've lost and about what you potentially could look like. The key is, what are you going to look like come October, the end of October? What are you going to look like at the end of October? Okay? So I wrote these questions down here. And let's go over them here. Do you have enough at the safety position now? Reed, Blankenship, Terrell Edmonds, and Sidney Brown. How do you feel about your safety position? Do you have enough? Do you feel comfortable with those 3 guys? It was a big question mark going into camp. How do you feel about them as you get ready to put things on a depth chart and get ready for the start of the season? How do you feel about them? Roland goes, I want to sign one more safety just in case. Carl goes, pretty good. I'm pretty much with Carl there. I feel pretty good about it. How about this, Carl? I feel better. I feel better than I did 2 weeks ago. Ty's like that? Ty, me too. Ty, me too. I feel pretty good about it. How about this? I feel more on the encouraged side than I do on the negative side. And it's a lot for me, right? I'm more optimistic. Now, got to remember something. With the lack of experience, could guys get beat? Could guys not? Guys are going to get beat this year versus what you saw a year ago. It's okay, though. Okay? That's okay. Guys are going to get beat because of the lack of experience. Okay? Tone's like, as much as I like Sidney Brown, I'm only 60% confident in the safety room as a whole. Blankenship, I feel good about. Brown still has to show me more. Consistency, obviously. We got to remember, it was only one preseason game. Let me see how the whole thing. And again, how I look at it, I don't look at it just with one preseason game. I look at it how they're being coached. How they played out there together. I didn't really give a shit about the Ravens. I watched how they aligned, how they moved around, how they talked. Watching the Ravens in a vanilla game plan, to sit here and try to bullshit you and tell you that you take a lot away from the Ravens. If you notice, I didn't say anything about the Ravens. I don't give a shit what the Ravens are doing. Does it matter? No. It mattered their alignment, how guys ran to the ball, their effort level, how they communicated down the line, how they echoed calls, how guys were helping one another. I saw people talking pre-snap. That's the shit I look at. That's stuff that you have to have at OTAs, minicamp, and then into training camp and preparing for a game plan. That's what I look at. That's why I see all this differently than you. Dude, do you think I really take away anything from that Ravens game? I take nothing away from it except this. Nolan Smith was so hyped up to get in that game, it got the best of him. And it wasn't that he's not confident. He was so amped up that my take, what was it? If you watch him, he probably got a ton of Fs and a ton of minuses. But I'd start laughing in film. I'd go, oh, kid, you need to slow it down a little bit. How many Red Bulls did you have before you went on the air? Or how many Red Bulls did you have before you played a game? You might want to back off a couple Red Bulls. Relax. Just chill here a little bit. It's going to come to you. Just hang in there. The more you know about it. That's why, see, the more you study and prepare, the easier the game comes. And you feel more comfortable and confident. Okay? Yeah. Hey, absolutely. Nolan Smith, you can coach that motor. I hate guys with no motor. I'll tell you this. I watch Nolan Smith. I watch Sidney Brown. I watch Jalen Carter. I watch all the Eagle young guys, and I tune on and turn on a tape of Mozzie Smith. I am highly disappointed. He's fat. He's out of shape. He thinks he's a tough guy, and he's not. Tough guys don't win in the NFL. Tough people do. Josh Johnson was having flashbacks from the hit in the NFC title game. Hey, dude, walking around like you're a tough guy. Are you crazy? In a room with 53 maniacs that are the toughest people on the planet. You don't act like a tough guy around people that make a living on hitting people. That's such a dummy thing to do. Walking around, I don't really like football. I like hitting people. That's a dorky ass goofball. And I'm shocked he went to Michigan. Think he'd be smarter than that. Hey, I don't like football. I like hitting people. I'm a real tough guy. You know, really, I'm sure you are, guy. When you got to tell somebody you're a tough guy, you ain't a tough guy. Toughness isn't something you don't. Hey, toughness is not something you put on a t-shirt or a hat. You're either it or you're not. Mozzie Smith's a walking tough guy. This guy belongs to WWE. Lincoln Financial, WWE, Mozzie Smith. I watched Jalen Carter, seriously, and I go, that's a football player. I watch Mozzie Smith, I'm like, dude, that's a cement bricklayer. That guy looks like he's laying cement bricks. Like Frankenstein. This is how Mozzie Smith moves. Jalen Carter's up and over like this. Here's Mozzie Smith. Watch this. Like Frankenstein. Oh, I'm a big tough guy. And you watch Jalen Carter, he's like, pow, over with the quick swim, rips. Dude's got it all, man. Mozzie Smith. I'm going to call him Frankenstein from now on. Seriously. That's Mozzie Frankenstein. Oh, boy. Not good so far. Mozzie Frankenstein. Holy cow. All right, let's go to the second question. I think we have not asked this. We have not asked this question about Nakobe Dean. It's not a rip. What's a successful season for Nakobe Dean this year? Sills, what do you think of Trey Lance on Sunday? Did he play? Yeah, hey, Mozzie's one of those technical. He's like those. What do you call those? Those guys who do this stuff like this. Dude, he I don't see it. Okay, no 90 dice for he's barred. Here's Mozzie doing a swim move. I don't know, man. That's my hit. I'm doing Mozzie Smith swim move. No, here's his rip move now. Hey. Okay, here's his bull rush. That's what I see. Yeah, hey, Nick, I like it. Mozzie Herman Munster. Herman Munster. He plays like Herman Munster. Yeah. Big old blockhead. I don't see it. What's a successful year for Dean? What would be a successful year? Can you put it in tackles? Brock Lesnar was better than Mozzie Smith. Brock was a pretty good ball player. He wasn't bad. He made it to the final cut with the Packers. 100 tackles, 5 sacks, Pro Bowl alternate. Gotta love Arthur, man. Keeps it real every day and never wavers. Wow. Hurts to win. 70 tackles. So you're going to drop basically 100 tackles to 70. Defense is in trouble if he only has 70. Because that means he's not playing a lot. Or he's not, either you're hoping he's not playing a lot. Because if he plays all 17 games and gets 70 tackles, you got a problem. He needs to be around that 100 tackle mark. 65 tackles is not going to cut it. Hey, Greasy, when you say 65 tackles, you're eliminating 100 tackles out of that number 2 ranked defense? How do you think that plays out in short yardage? I mean, really, you're asking a lot. I think he's got to be around 100. I think he's got to be around 100. I'll give him 110. Or, hey, 100. I was going to say 110, but I think he's got to be around 110. Okay? You can't go like this. Well, 70 tackles. Shit, man. The guy that was there a year ago had 160. And if you count the playoffs, he probably had near 200 tackles. Can you imagine that? Hey, Tone, am I right when I say that? If you put all 20 games that TJ played, TJ Edwards probably had 200 tackles. 70? That ain't going to cut it. That ain't going to cut it. That guy had like 200 tackles. 100 tackles probably puts you into conversation and helps you out. He can't cover seals. Trey, I don't know that yet. I don't know that yet. Okay, I got to see it in games. I don't know if he can't cover yet. It's unfair for me to go like this. Well, he can't do this or he can't do that. I'm saying 160 tackles for somebody who only played 34 snaps is a lot to ask. I don't care if you're a superstar talented. Hey, I would make this point to you. 160 tackles is a lot to ask from a veteran free agent to come in. Edwards had 172 tackles, including the playoffs. Dude, do you know how hard 172 tackles are in the NFL? I'll give him 65 tackles. Dude, you better. 65 tackles? You're getting bounced in the wild card round. You better hope you don't have 65 tackles. So you're going to put 100 tackles in the back pocket and 100 solo. Yeah, and will he hold up? Okay. A lot of questions here. Pulling for the kid. Yes, sir. Here's another kid. I'll tell you this. If I'm him, this is a chance to look at people and go, why'd you draft me in the 3rd round again? I was a 1st-round player. Or the NFL will look at him and go, this is why you were drafted in the 3rd round. We had question marks on your covering and your durability. Okay? Another question. Will Sean Desai be more conservative than Jonathan Gannon or more aggressive? What are we looking for? Now, it's a different makeup of a roster this year than it was a year ago. What are you looking for? Is Desai going to be more conservative because of the lack of experience? Or is he going to be more aggressive? So Lewis and Mateo wants to be aggressive. So I'm not saying you're wrong. Joseph too. So you'd rather die by one knife shot than 1,000 knives, right? If you're going to get beat, you're going to get beat. But let's get beat being aggressive. Okay. That's Dan Quinn mentality. That means you got to be creative. And they're showing signs that they're moving guys around. I think they're going to be more aggressive. Okay? And what I mean by it might be subtle aggressive. It might be subtle. Instead of playing, maybe they play with one linebacker, drop a safety down, put him in the nickel, and you have Sidney Brown on the field, or you have somebody else with experience out there in the secondary covering your linebacker play on 3rd and long. I think on 3rd and long, you're not going to have a lot of linebackers out there. The strength of your cover team is your secondary, not your backers. Okay? You don't have enough in the linebacking talent to be able to cover tight ends and backs out of the backfield. So to me, here's how I play it. Tone and all of you, I don't know. The key for this football team on defense, for them to have success, get back to the NFC title game, is you've got to win 1st and 2nd down. If you put that team in 3rd and long, you could take one of them backers off the field, drop another safety in the slot down, and you can play like with a Cam Chancellor or a Brian Dawkins. Your talent's in your secondary. You got more talented people in your secondary than you have with that linebacking core. Your linebacking core is not talented at all. They're just dudes. But looks like you have some talent. And you got a coach that knows how to move people around too in Matt Patricia. And it looks like Desai and him are working well. Okay? That D-line's got a lot of pressure on it. They got to get home again. They're not going to get home to the tune of 70 sacks. But they got to get home. Because if they allow 4-second, 7-step drops, they'll eat you alive. The quarterbacks in the NFL, every quarterback that's ever played in the last 2 years against you has eaten you alive. You can't allow the quarterbacks to have a lot of time back there. They've got to get home. Figuring out how to get Nolan Smith in a pass rushing situation, taking advantage of that 4-3. Getting Sidney Brown. See, to me, Sidney Brown and Nolan Smith, a lot of speed and some aggressiveness there. Those are two guys. The guy Ricks, let me see him against Cleveland. Let's see what he's got. But Smith and Brown, I mean, I got to figure out a way to play them dudes. Okay? I got to figure out a way to play them guys. And I've got to figure out a way to cover my linebackers. I heard Tone say something earlier. See, the problem that Howie has here, a couple things caught him off guard. Here's the two things, or a few things that caught him off guard. And Tone, I'm going to put them together. So they never offered TJ Edwards a $7 million contract. Okay. They probably thought that Fangio could cover it. Probably thought that Vic would come up with a way to cover the lack of experience at the linebacker position. Uh-oh. Shit goes sideways. He's in Miami. They're scrambling. TJ, once he never gets the contract over, he goes home and he goes back to Chicago. Well, that's off the table. They probably never even got a chance to get back in there because they probably told him point blank, We're not paying anything. And $7 million in today's NFL, $7 million, really? For a linebacker that got you 160 tackles and was the mainstay of your defense? I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like that was well thought out. Then they didn't get the coordinator from Georgia, the Bulldogs. They wanted him. What happened? Well, he was still in the national championship hunt, and that went late. So they had to wait until that thing was over. And then once that whole thing with Vic Fangio after the Super Bowl fell apart, that thing was like, nah, I'm going back to Georgia. I'm going to sit there. And they gave him a raise. They gave him a raise. That guy in Georgia is now making $3 million a year as a coordinator. He's the highest paid D coordinator in the NFL, or in college football now. $3 million? He makes more than the majority of the coaches in college football today, except for the top 25 guys. Why would he leave? He's at Georgia. He's going to potentially win a third national title. Why should he leave? Okay? Why should he leave? So then they land on Desai. He's the third choice. He was not the top priority. That was not the number one choice to be the defensive coordinator. So what you've done is, as this whole process is going through, you're losing Epps, you're losing Hardgrave, you haven't had a coordinator signed, you really hadn't gone through the process. And so for me, all of that kind of caught him up all at once. Draft another D tackle. And before you look at it, you've lost a lot of personnel and you didn't even have your coordinator hired yet. You lost all your personnel before you had your coordinator signed. Okay? And see what Roland says? Desai's understanding Philadelphia's defense. He's been here 4 months. Really? You think he really knows the defense? Jonathan Gannon took him 2 years just to do what he did. So you think in 4 months he knows what's up. Okay? Sean McDermott just took over play calling the defense of Buffalo. Said they're having issues in communication. But not in Philly, right? Huh. Okay. Of course. Not in Philly. Right? I mean, I think they're going to cover a lot of areas that they're weak in. They can't get injured, too. I mean, they can't get injured. I mean, does it matter if the linebackers get hurt? I guess not. I don't know. I don't know. Then again, I'm going to say this to you. Murrow moved around well. He ran to the ball. He kept his outside shoulder good. He didn't have a lot of false steps. So, I mean, let's see him against Cleveland. I'll get a better sense of what he's doing. Okay? But I mean, again, let's see how this thing progresses out here. Okay? We have a new linebacker coach that never coached in the NFL. Well, you add all that, man. I mean, that's a lot of new faces, new words and verbiage. And, man, just because you know how to paint a Picasso doesn't mean you're Picasso. I mean, this isn't a coloring book. See, people think playing defense is like a coloring book. You could just buy the same coloring book and draw in the lines. It doesn't work like that. It's a whole different deal. It's a new roster. It's everything different. Okay? So here's another question. I like these questions too, because I haven't asked them. How important is Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and their play this year? How important is their play? Graham had a career sack year last year, 11. Fletcher had 6.5 sacks. I mean, he played very well. especially in the back end of the season. Okay? Like Joey goes, Fletcher Cox is important. Boy, I tell you what, man, if you lost Fletcher Cox, are you feel comfortable going into the season with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter if you lost Fletcher? How would you feel about that? And Nakobe Dean behind him? How would you feel about your triangle? If you lost Fletcher Cox, you'd have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Nakobe Dean with little NFL experience at all. And a football team that wasn't the greatest when it came to stopping the run. Okay? You got one guy that's never played it down. You got another guy who still has to prove himself. And you got another guy who had 34 snaps. Boy, I would not want to lose Fletcher Cox. I would not want to lose him. Who replaces Brandon Graham if Brandon Graham goes down? Who would replace Brandon Graham? Can you help me? Don't tell me Derek Barnett. Who would take over for Brandon Graham? Milton Williams? You're going to move him outside? Take away your depth from the inside tackle position? So people keep telling me, who takes over for Brandon Graham? Milton Williams? So you're going to move a defensive tackle off your depth at tackle in your rotation to cover for Brandon Graham if Brandon Graham goes down. Do you really think you're deep? You think you're deep? Milton Williams, Nolan Smith is going to replace Brandon Graham. Well, last time I saw him on the field, he looked like a chicken with his head cut off. You're going to line up Nolan Smith on Trent Williams. Nolan Smith is your backup to Brandon Graham. Okay, let's go back to the question now. Okay, let's go back to the question. How important is Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham this year to this Eagle team? How important? Sweat's the guy on the other side, Joseph. Graham's not beating Trent Williams? Well, Nolan Smith surely isn't then. Okay, they call me Stubbs. Says that the D-line's their deepest. Okay, so look what he says. He thinks they're deep. So if you lose Fletcher at the D-tackle position, you've got Jordan Davis and you've got Jalen Carter. One guy's never played. And you got another guy. And you got another guy who's proven himself. I think they're very important. They're important on the depth. Let's ask this last question before we take a time out here. What's Jordan Davis's role going to be? Is he going to be the rotation guy? Is he going, hey, is that going to be in flux? By the way, these are questions, not indictments. Is Jordan Davis going to be the rotating guy? Is he going to be the first and second down guy? Is he going to play 65 plays? 40 plays? What's his role going to be? Cobra goes run stopper. So that means he plays on first and second down. Can I tell you something about his play last year? 52% of his snaps were not on, get this, I got that number here. Here it is. 52% of Jordan Davis's snaps last year came on third down. Half his plays, he was off the field on third down. Little under half. Every time they were in third down, which this league is known for, third down, he was on the sidelines for his snaps. So if you're thinking, if you lose Fletcher, Jordan Davis, I think the Eagles already know who he is. They already know. 52% of his snaps last year came on third down. A little over half. So half of the time, the 65 plays, 70% of the time, 71.3% of the time, you're a nickel. That means Jordan Davis is on the sidelines. He's a rotating guy. That's what the Eagles look at him as. That's what he evolved. Now, will that number go up because Hargrave's gone? Probably. Probably. You keep telling me you're deep. I mean, don't lose Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. I think they're important to the depth of the team. Lose all that experience? You're putting guys. So you guys go like this. Nolan Smith. So Nolan Smith. Here's your D-line. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. 0 NFL experience. And Josh Sweat. This your front? We'll see. All right. Hey, folks, Big Sills here. We are so looking forward to the fact that we are going to have Hooters as our home, our official home for the 2023 season. King of Prussia is going to be absolutely awesome. We cannot wait. Do me a favor. Go to northeasthooters.com to find that location nearest you. There's 7 great locations. It's the 40th anniversary. Wait till you see all the great events that we're going to be doing when we're at King of Prussia. I talked to Phil today, and we're just so excited to get everything going. Go to my Twitter page, too, by the way, at Dan Sileo Show. You'll see when we're going to be in town. Can't wait to meet many of you. By the way, draft parties, and also what I mean by draft parties, your fantasy draft parties and your favorite football, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of this week. The places are going to be absolutely packed. Tuesdays, one of the great anniversaries that we have when it comes to putting people together here, the 40th anniversary. You buy 10 wings, you get 10 bonus wings free. Wing Wednesdays. How about this one? All you can eat 1983. That's been a staple at Hooters for over 40 years. 6 items, $6. The great weekday specials they have, the happy hours. I mean it, folks. Do me a favor. Go to northeasthooters.com to find one of the 7 locations nearest you. It's the 40th anniversary. We're so looking forward to seeing you out there. And when you go to Hooters, do me a favor. Tell them Big Sills sent you.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Am I supposed to care that Lionel Messi was in Philly? Am I supposed to care? How's that union thing? I hate soccer personally. I don't hate it. I just think it's a non-sport in America. I don't really care. I know some people like it, and it's okay. And sportscasters pretend that they're World Cup experts every 4 years. You know how that goes. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I don't want people to start tuning the channel out. I don't really care. The GOAT? Lionel Messi's the GOAT of a sport I hate. Okay, great. Can I tell you what watching soccer is like? It's like watching like the heptathlon in the Olympics. Oh, there that event is every 4 years. Soccer will never be anything in this country. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about it. So we care more about an old aging star coming over from Europe than any I can't name you one American star player outside of Landon Donovan, who I know. Landon Donovan, and then, Lionel Messi. Messi's 35, 36 years old. You bring these retreads over. You know what the MLS is? The MLS is like a retirement home. It's like a retirement home. I like the pink outfits, too. It probably fits and it's appropriate. All right, let me move on here. We'll reset at the top of the hour here. So the Jets, they get Dalvin Cook. Let me ask you this about the Jets versus the Eagles here. What would you rather have? Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, or the Eagle O-line? I think you see where I'm going here. You see everybody in New York? Holy cow, we got an amazing running back room. They do. They do. They got an amazing running back room. Amazing. Amazing running back room. What would you rather have? The Eagle O-line or Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook? Let me put it to you this way. Who's going to have a better running attack this year? The Jets or the Eagles? Who do you think will rank higher at the end of the year? There's a shot Jalen Hurts. I'm under the belief that Jalen Hurts has a chance to go for 1,000 rushing yards before I do 4,000 passing yards. I'm not saying he's going to go backwards in any way in his passing. 3,800, 37, that's kind of where he's going to be. But if someone went, Sills, you think he can get 1,000? Yeah. If he would have played those other games healthy, shit, he probably was right around 1,000. I say the Eagles have a better running attack with Kenny Gainwell, Boston, banged up Penny, versatile Swift. And then Howie looks at everyone and goes, yeah, I didn't pay $7 million for that guy. Well, Breece Hall's good. Okay, well, I'll take the O-line. Because if you look at the Jets O-line, what's the sense of having all them backs? Here's my problem with the signing of Dalvin Cook if you're the Jets. Dude, you sign a $7 million running back and your tackles suck and your O-line's not very good. You're relying on that back to create space and that quarterback to create space with guys that are limited. That's going to be your downfall in the AFC. I'll say this one more time to you. I think there's going to be some good football teams that are going to be a good football team in the AFC. They ain't going to make the playoffs. The Jets might win 10 ball games and still might not make the playoffs. You cannot have a makeshift O-line. Now, what helps the Jets and what keeps the Jets above water here is that I think they got the best defense in the NFL. When everything is said and done. By the way, the head coach is he was tremendous in San Francisco. There's no coincidence that football team's got a good defense. And remember this, when Robert Saleh showed up, they sucked. That thing turned overnight last year. They're good. Their corners are really good. Their backers are really good, and their front four's good. They got a good group, man. Very few weaknesses on that Jet defense. It's a good football team. They're going to win a lot of games. But I still question that O-line. Everybody in New York and Craig Carton's telling me, look at this, Sills. Don't you think the Eagles wish they had this? I told them no. They would rather have Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson than Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. Wouldn't you? Jeez, I would. And I wouldn't even debate that. These guys are great. I go, so you're trying to, I got into an argument with Craig. He'd rather have Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook than Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. And I was like, man, if anyone thinks that, I'm not going to have that debate with you. I'm not going to have that debate because that's not a smart take. Why don't you ask Aaron Rodgers who he'd rather have? His front side tackle and blind side tackle covered with two players that are Pro Bowlers versus two running backs that are Pro Bowlers. Who would you rather have again? And sometimes people, you look at it and you go like this. I don't know. Okay? I mean, the Jets, look, I watch them on Hard Knocks. There's no question. Aaron Rodgers is a different dude. I think he's happier. Hey, can I say this to you, man? I guess sometimes maybe you get a different address and you get a different zip code. Maybe it does change your attitude. Maybe it does do all that. I still think he's full of shit. But hey, that's just me. That's my New Englander in me, right? Hey, Philly, that wouldn't fly with us. That wouldn't fly with anybody from New England. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is a new guy. I keep hearing this. I'm like, the snowflakes in California say this. So I was listening to Colin Cowherd and those guys. Aaron Rodgers is a different guy. And I'm like, no, he's not. This is the same guy. He's just a bullshit artist. See, we would look at him, Aaron Rodgers, as a bullshit artist, would we not? Wouldn't we look at him as a bullshit artist? I mean, I look at him, I go like this. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just, you can't, hey, that'd be like Ben Simmons coming back to Philly going, hey, I'm a different guy. You know, I'm more, you know, of a leader now. And you'd be like, it ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. Like, you know what you get? How about this, Tone? One thing I learned about Philly dudes, and maybe you too, Barb, they don't go back and redate a guy they dumped. They don't go back and redate people they dump. Once you're out, you're out. It's over. There ain't no going back. Yeah, you're dead to me. It's over. There ain't no making up. You're dead to me. Like James Harden, he's dead to them. Ben Simmons, he's dead to them. Yeah. Holy cow. I think the Jets go 11-6. Okay. Yeah, probably around near Maniac. I say that. Antonio Gates is going to the Hall of Fame. Yes. Yes. Gates, a Hall of Fame player. Someone tell Brian Johnson the bootlegs will be there 100% every time and Lane anchoring that edge. Well, just to finish up on that topic, the Jet people are like crowing now, like, oh, we got Dalvin Cook in this. And I'm like, I'd rather have the Eagle O-line. I'd rather have the Eagle offensive line than that stuff. Right? Hey, by the way, before I take a time out here, Sidney Brown. So Sidney Brown's running around out there and he's talking about being the best. He's talking about hitting people. Tone, I hate to do this to Sidney Brown. I hate to do this to him. I hate to do this to him. I'm going to take a timeout because I got to figure out if I'm going to say this about Sidney Brown. I talked to a guy last night who's coming on the program, I think Thursday or Friday. Tomorrow or Friday. You'll want to hear who it is. And he loves the kid. And I'm going to add him, Sidney Brown, when this guy comes on. Hit the like button. Hour 3 coming up. Jason Cole's going to join us as well. We'll talk NFL with him, our Hall of Fame insider. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. EAGLEX. Eagles.
Big Sales, now we're number 3. Sidney Brown reminds me in attitude of my friend Ed Reed. Am I saying he's Ed Reed? Absolutely not. So I asked Ed Reed last night, hey, man, Ed, you want to come on out of nowhere? Hey, I like that boy you got on that team from Illinois. I go, Ed Reed. I go, Sidney Brown. He goes, yeah, that kid runs around, man. He's got a good little attitude on him. They should put his ass on special teams, too. Let him go kill guys running down on kickoffs. I never even thought about that. I was like, and now again, he reminds me of a style of play. Get this. Whenever you mention that, out of nowhere, people go, are you comparing him to Ed Reed? No, I'm comparing his style of play and attitude, not his resume. He's got to fill the resume first. Then you get the full package. Ed Reed's the greatest safety to ever play in pro football's history. College or pro. He's the greatest special teams man in college and pro football history. He was a special teams demon. Hey, B-Walk. Not close in resumes. Not close. Brad Dawkins, it's not close. Ed Reed's the greatest safety to ever play in pro football history. And the resume and the championships say it. Well, wait. I thought you guys would be excited about that. I thought you'd be excited about me saying that. Ed Reed. Gee, I don't know how you're not excited about that. Here's Ed Reed's resume. Super Bowl champion. NFL Defensive Player of the Year. 9-time Pro Bowler. 6 times first team All-Pro. NFL Decade Player in 2000, 100th anniversary all-time team. NFL Rookie Team. NFL records now. Most career interception return yards. Longest interception return. Most career postseason interceptions. Most seasons leading the league in interceptions. Brian Dawkins doesn't touch that. Ed Reed's the greatest safety to ever play. And he's coming on Thursday or Friday. Finally convinced him. Hey, Beat Walk, that's okay. Hey, by the way, let me say this to you. Brian Dawkins is top 5 safety of all time. Okay? That's 107 years of football. So if I disrespected him, forgive me. That's a guy you don't disrespect. I mean, no disrespect. I think he's better than Troy Polamalu. I think Brian Dawkins is better than Polamalu. Okay? Hey, and, here's Tone. Ed Reed's the best ever, flat out. And I absolutely love Brian Dawkins. No disrespect to Brian. Okay? Ronnie Lott, Dawkins, Reed. Those 3 guys, shit. Flip a coin some. And I'll tell you what. Whoever you chose, I'd be okay with the other guys to choose from too. You're not going to lose in that conversation with those 3 dudes, man. You know what I mean? Tone goes, I'm an Eagle fan, but I'm not blind. Ed Reed's the greatest safety that's ever played. And he did the same shit in college. He was a special teams demon in college. Man, Wes Hopkins, Yale, what a hitter. You know what? I'll tell you what, that's a really great – wow, Kevin. Hey, you want to hear something? Sean Taylor was Ed Reed's backup at Miami on that 2001 team. That's how deep the University of Miami was. And Dave Wannstedt and Butch Davis recruiting those guys to go to UM. Sean Taylor and Ed Reed were on the same Hurricane team. I mean, Taylor was the backup. Crazy. Sean Taylor and Jerome Brown, if they would have lived, they would have been in Canton. Boy, Wes Hopkins and Sidney Brown. Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah. All good, B-Walk. Hey, man, I get it. Hey, go with your guy, loyal to the soil. Nothing wrong with that. There's totally nothing wrong with that. Oh, Ronald. I used to go down to Miami and talk, and Sean and Ed were down there and all them guys. They'd come up to all the guys who kind of set the tone for University of Miami. And those guys would all be talking to us about the attitude we had back in the day. And I'm like, you guys, watching Sean Taylor run around Green Tree, the practice field down in Miami, and Ed Reed on the field at the same time, you were like this. Yeah, okay, these guys right here are going to be special dudes. And guess who they were going against? Andre Johnson and Reggie Wayne in practice. How'd you like that, Tone? You got Andre Johnson and Reggie Wayne and Santana Moss, and you're going against Sean Taylor, Ed Reed, and those guys are playing in 7-on-7s. And then you got backs coming out of the backfield, McGahee, Frank Gore, Edgerrin James. They were all on the same team. Bryant McKinney was blocking. It was crazy. I mean, it was ridiculous. Saps on the other side. Cortez and them dudes. Ray Lewis was, hey, how about this? You had a defense with Ray Lewis, Sean Taylor, and Ed Reed on it at the University of Miami. And Sapp in front. I don't know. We were ridiculous for about 20 years. Now we are ridiculous the other way. Shockey too, right? Shockey was on them teams. Kellen Winslow, Junior, I know. Let me say something about Devontae Smith. Don't forget our boy Jason Cole. We're going to talk some ball with him at the bottom of the hour here. Oh, I want to do something here about, you know what, listen. I want to look at one of the top opponents for the Eagles here. I want to do the Cowboys here in a minute. But a few things here. I look at Devontae Smith. Vilma, was it 29? It was Vilma. Hey, was Beeson there too? 29, was it Beeson and Vilma that were the linebackers? Maybe it was Beeson and Vilma that was there. I think it was Beeson and Vilma. Okay. Something on Devontae Smith. DJ Williams, great player. Great player. Devontae Smith reminds me of this. Two dudes. Rodney Harrison. Man, if you had Rodney Harrison in your secondary and he was dressed as Sidney Brown, you understand Rodney Harrison didn't get the Pro Bowls that he needed to because he was a dirty player and people feared him. Same way they did Jack Tatum. You understand the modern day Jack Tatum is Rodney Harrison. Okay? You understand that. And when you got guys like that back there that play like that with that physicality, you're not going to have a lot of friends. Jack Tatum is the greatest safety when it came to intimidating anybody's ever seen. He's my favorite player. Shit, I got my book somewhere around here that he signed. I got to show it to you. They call me the assassin. He's my favorite NFL player. And I got a chance. Yeah, I think I told you this. And I met him. And I was on the air in San Francisco. And my friend George Atkinson brings him in. And there's Jack Tatum. I was like, holy shit. He comes walking in, sits right in front of me, gives me a book. And it's signed. And I'm like, you know, my partner, Rod Brooks, was sitting next to me. He goes, the first time I've seen you not say anything, I'm like, man, this guy was a superstar at Ohio State, and he was a superstar with the Raiders. And nobody came across the middle because that MFer would knock your dick into the dirt. The Raiders were great because why? George Atkinson, Jack Tatum, Willie Brown, and Lester Hayes. When you got a secondary like that, you couldn't afford that secondary today. You couldn't afford that secondary. They killed people with that secondary. You come across the middle. And so you get a guy like Jack Tatum and this kid, Sidney Brown. Man, I would dig that. You know what? You guys are talking to me into this guy being one of my favorite players now because I enjoy watching him play. I do. Let me finish up my take on Devontae, though, before we get Jason in here. Would it be okay if I said this about Devontae? I see Art Monk and Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, like that. All guys who took care of business, didn't talk shit, and just won. Exceptional route runners. Like, is he a more skilled guy than Andre Rison? Andre Rison was a better athlete. Devontae is more polished in his routes, his tap-toeing down the sidelines. He really has a great sense of spacing, field presence. He runs precise 15 route outs. You know the problem that you had with Chad Johnson? And it reared its head when he went to New England. Chad Johnson, when he ran a pattern, say he ran an out pattern, he'd run it 13 and a half yards. Well, when you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, that bitch better be 15 yards on the nut, or you're not going to play. That's why he struggled to get reps in New England. 16 and a half yard out or in or wheel or turn in. And it was limited, his playing time. Everyone kept saying, how come he's not playing? Well, when you have these precise and like you can't play with Peyton Manning and run a 13-yard in. You have to run 15, be on the nut, have a field presence, know your route routine. How many steps does it take you to get to a 15-yard cut in? Do you know how much practice that takes? And dedication that takes by yourself when no one's watching you? You don't know where you are on the field. Sometimes you're in the middle of the hash. You're in the middle of the 5-yard line. You have no idea. So you just can't go by the yard line. It's almost like being a car. Here, let me say this to you. Michael Irvin told me this a long time ago. When you're a precise route runner like he was, it's almost like picking out spots on a racetrack that you have to make your turn or downshift, or positions on a turn that you're looking for, landmarks that you have for you to make these proper turns and these proper route running. So what you do is, when next time watch Devontae when he goes out for pregame, he looks at the field and sees the field and looks for landmarks. And then you get a sense, especially when they're away. Michael Irvin used to go out. Dude, those guys aren't going out looking for the fans, shaking hands. They're looking for landmarks that they're going to make their cuts on. The great ones do. The other ones bullshit on the sidelines, putting on gold jackets, hitting their watches, paying the fans, banging their head against the punter's net, all that shit. The great ones, they go out there and they're looking at landmarks on the field. If I get to go down here, that's what makes them. So this kid, Sidney Brown, going to get Ed Reed on either tomorrow or Friday. And I would say this, as we get my friend Jason Cole on, Ed Reed, that couldn't have been too much of a conversation. I think he's the greatest safety that's ever played. 9-time Pro Bowler, 6-time first team, player of the year, 7 records. Brian Dawkins was a great player. Ronnie Lott was a great one. But this guy right here, I mean, he was one of the greatest special teams players of all time on top of that, and did it almost the entire time in his career. So when you talk about, I'd be interested to see what Jason says as we start this off. Jason, I appreciate you coming aboard, brother. Ed Reed, greatest safety ever?
Free safety, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about ball hawk, amazing instincts, coverage skills, all those things. I don't think he came up and hit people the way that a Ronnie Lott did. So I would take the combination of Ronnie Lott's ability to hit and cover over Ed's ability to cover slightly. But it would also say this, in Ed Reed's case, he played in an era where throwing was more pronounced. So that skill is probably more important when he plays than when Ronnie plays. I mean, Ronnie plays still in a passing era, don't get me wrong, but it's even more so in Ed's era. So, it's close. I just, football is still, it's a big man's game, and it's a hitting game. And I value that a lot. You have to be able to come up and physically be able to intimidate people at the end of the day. There's an element of that. And Ronnie Lott did that unlike very few people.
Ronnie Lott, I would say, in his era, because it was a predominant run era, had to fill
Not
those
predominant,
lanes.
but it wasn't like in Ed's era. And by Ed's era, we're taking a bigger turn towards throwing. It's still a throwing era in Ronnie's era.
So would we say that maybe against run support, maybe Lott was better and Ed was better in the pass game?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any. You're not knocking anybody to say that.
No. And by the way, I mean, whoever you choose, I'm okay with.
Right. Yeah. Like you want Ed Reed? Cool. I'll take Ronnie Lott. I'll be good. I'm okay. Like that's like, again, like everybody wants to argue about the top 5 or 6 or 8 quarterbacks of all time and who's in it. It's like, I'll take last pick, man. I'll be good.
Yeah, I love that conversation. Jace, you know what? I heard someone say this earlier today when they're talking about the wide receiver position. I look at Devontae Smith and I look at A.J. Brown, and someone goes like this to me. They go, well, Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I go, why would you say that? Because he has the most yards and catches? And the guy goes, yeah. I go, well, how about games where you take over and it matters more? Empty calorie stats with teams that do nothing in the postseason. The most relied upon position in the NFL on how we look at people is the wide receiver position. If you have the most yards, the most catches, you must be the best. That doesn't necessarily mean he's the best wideout.
No, it doesn't. It just look, we play in a fantasy football era. I'm going to be taking, if I get a shot at Justin Jefferson, I'm taking him pretty high in my fantasy football draft. I mean, but if you're drafting a team, is he by far number one? No. I think he's in the conversation probably of the top 3.
How about this? If you had a Super Bowl you had to win and Brady was the quarterback for both these guys, you think he'd pick Edelman or Jefferson?
No, he picked Jefferson. He would.
He would?
Jefferson over Edelman. Yeah, I mean.
Well, he never won with Moss.
You'd still take him. he came this close to going undefeated with Moss, and he threw that dude a lot of touchdowns. Okay, don't look. At the end of the day, quarterbacks want the best guy that they could possibly throw to. Right? They're greedy that way, and he'd take Justin Jefferson over Julian Edelman. But that's not real. I don't think that's really the argument. The question is, if you have Cooper Kupp, you have A.J. Brown, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Chase from Cincinnati, right?
Jamar Chase.
Yeah. Which one do you want out of that group? Stephon Diggs maybe have
all
that
of
in
them.
the conversation. Right. Like, again, I'll take him. But there's slight differences depending on how you design your offense. Like Cooper Kupp works really well in an LA offense where he's given a tremendous amount of freedom to run almost any route he wants because he's such a good route runner. Okay. And he's fast. Okay. Justin Jefferson gets the ball a lot funneled to him because he can overwhelm people. Jamar Chase gets the ball on the move a lot by design in the Cincinnati offense because he's like a running back with the football once you get it in his hands. I mean, we can go on and on. A.J. Brown, if you're going to have a run-based system where
like
you're
Philly.
forcing, if you're going to be like Philly and you're going to say, look, defense, you're going to have to force and come up so that we're going to get a lot more one-on-ones for A.J. Brown. Like A.J. Brown's a perfect fit for what they do. Does that make him a better player than Justin Jefferson? Probably not on physical skill, but in the system that they run, in the system that they would run, I would rather have A.J. Brown than Justin Jefferson.
See, that's kind of where, and you like you said, it's a double-edged sword there. I mean, if you're looking at the best skilled player, obviously, that's like the conversation, like you say all the time, Jason, about the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a more skilled player than Brady. However, Brady has mastered the position. Right. The same with Peyton. Those guys, I mean, like when you look at John Elway and you see John Elway on what his physicality was, if you've ever stood near, I don't think people understand, when you stood next to John Elway, you thought you were standing next to a starting middle linebacker. He's a big dude.
Yeah, he was a big, broad-shouldered dude who, if you were a defensive lineman and you got him in your sights, right, and you think you're about to nail him, and then he dips that front shoulder and does that little reverse pivot thing from you, and you're like a bull running right past the matador, right, and he's
Yeah.
escaping out, buying enough time. And by the way, if your DB falls asleep, even at 40 yards deep, he's killing him, right? Like it's what are the what I always go back to is what is the skill set matched up with the offense that you play,
Yeah.
and what do you like this is coaching is 20% of it. Physical skill is 80% of it, but that 20% is important because you got to match people up in the right system to max out what they did. Like, for John Elway, he got stuck in 10 years of Dan Reeves' offense, which at the time was a outdated offense with not much talent around him. But when they put the ball in John Elway's hands, there ain't many dudes who could stop him. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's all the skill set. But Brady, you put Peyton Manning in that offense where you're just feeding him really good receivers. And and he's got all sorts of choices about what he does. It's magic.
Jace, I want to get some NFL questions here to you now.
Okay.
Preseason doesn't seem like to be really that high priority any longer, especially for teams like Philadelphia and some other teams. They're looking at these organized team practices now as more of a way to control the environment against injuries and what have you. Do you think there'll be a time that the NFL, maybe they expand more games, maybe they go to that 18th game that they want to eventually go to, where you see maybe only one or two preseason games and they're just going to tee it off? What I'm saying is, do you think these preseason games are starting to get to the point where they're going to be extinct over the next, say, 5 or 6 years?
I think by the time you get to the collective bargaining agreement in 2030, they're either all gone or it's at most 2. All right.
With more regular season games, right?
Yeah, with the 8th game, and they'll figure out a way to sell it to the players. I mean, they got the players to buy into 17 games without much fight last time, and the union's not particularly well represented. And the players just, like by the time they get to 2030, we're in 2023. By the time they negotiate this thing in 5 or 6 years, most of the guys who are playing and are going to make the decision aren't even in the league right now.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't understand. They're going to come into the league going, well, we got 17 games and that's a lot. But what's the difference between 17 and 18 versus, we're playing 16 already and now you want us to go to 18? Like, there's just so little understanding of what the owners are trying to accomplish that the players eventually just go along with it.
Oh, no. And what's going to happen is they're going to have 2 buys and you're going to have an expanded roster from 53 to 60 for active Sundays, so that
I don't know if you're going to eventually get to 60. I think
55.
Yeah, 55, and you'll carry a bunch of guys on a practice squad. The most important thing that's going to happen is they'll eventually get the Super Bowl to where it's played. And this is the 2 buys that you talk about. The Super Bowl gets played on President's Day weekend.
Huh.
So that you have basically that Monday off after the Super Bowl.
Around the 14th, right? Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you get like a national holiday.
Yeah.
Which helps in terms of the host city gets to sell an extra day of hotels. Actually,
I never thought that. That's right.
Yeah, the departmental that most of America, corporate America, would love that too, because I guess they kept track of this. The most missed day, for employees is the Monday after the Super Bowl because everybody's still got round bottle flu, and from the night before, and so they don't show up for work on Monday. That's the most widely missed day. So you just eliminate that as a problem because everybody gets the Monday, it gets the holiday off, right? So the 2 buys, you get the 2 buys, you start right after Labor Day, you end on President's Day weekend, you make it a national holiday. It already is a national holiday, but you just reinforce that.
I love that, Jason. Dalvin Cook to the Jets means what for their chances. I said this earlier, Jace. I think there's going to be a really good football team come out of the AFC that's not going to make the postseason because that conference is pretty packed. What does that mean for the Jets by adding? Now you get, what's his name, off the PUP list too, Brees Hall, and now you got Dalvin Cook. What does that mean? I know the old line's a question mark, especially at the tackle positions there, but does that change your opinion?
Well, you got to really catch the ball. I mean, Dalvin Cook is two things. He's a tough runner. So he's going to convert your third and one, third and two, third and threes, right? A lot. He allows you to work Brees Hall back into it without just throwing him out there. But the most important thing is, like, to me, you give Rodgers a reliable receiver out of the backfield to just flip the ball out to that slows down your pass rush, or the opposition's pass.
So you think they use him like Aaron Jones in Green Bay, like they used him a
little
lot
bit, not
those middle screens?
Not exactly the same because he's a little different shape. He's he's a little bit bigger guy, a little bit tougher guy. But yeah, essentially, like we're going to use you as a guy to, run some screens, run some quick stuff, keep the defensive line from just say, okay, we're just tearing up field, and trying to make sure that we keep you in the pocket and keep you from breaking away. But we're coming after you as much as possible. I think that's what Cook is there for.
I'm going to throw this. This is a theory I have, and tell me if you subscribe to it. I'll tell you what, you being in Florida, me having lived there and played all my ball there in Florida, Jacksonville Jaguars are probably the least watched or cared about team all those years when we were talking about football in Florida. I mean, the league tried to, how many years were they trying to put that team in London with all those games? I think Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, I think these two guys have turned the worm there, man. I mean, look at this. Yeah. Tickets are going through the roof. Instead, look, Chase, before in the past, if you put Gator tickets, Bulldog tickets, or Tallahassee tickets, FSU tickets on the table, and Jag tickets, the Jag tickets would be the last ones taken. Now, these guys have made it kind of, I mean, I've talked more Jaguar football in the last 2 years during this time of the year, during the regular season, than I have in the last 30 years on the air. I mean, they've really done a nice job there turning this thing around and being relevant.
Quarterbacks are a great thing, aren't they?
Aren't they? Oh, man.
Why do you think Sonny Werblin went out and paid all that money for Joe Namath way back when?
Yeah. Am I right when I say that? How he's brought visibility and respectability to that franchise now, Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah. And look, one of the things I give him a lot of credit for is he did not get all pissy and moany his rookie year when he had to deal with that Urban Meyer stuff, right?
Yeah.
He was just he calmly, and astutely said, we're running the program. We need to improve the program, which was a way of telling the owner, dump this guy, but in the most polite way possible, right?
It was.
Right. But it was him, but it was judicious. It was smart. Yeah. And now he's playing to it. So you get a quarterback, everything else falls into place. You get guys who want to come play for you. You get, you're competitive. You got marketability. You become sexy, right? When you got a quarterback, like that changes the whole world for you. And they got a quarterback. Now, is he as good as Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes? We can have that argument.
We'll see.
But we'll see. I don't think he is yet. He might get there. But the point of the matter is he gives you hope.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you didn't have that kind of hope. You didn't think, I got a guy who I can argue for is one of the best 4 or 5.
Blake Bortles wasn't pushing the meter for me.
He tried. The kid tried. And
I get it.
Hey, look, the hardest thing in the world is I make this crack all the time. The hardest thing in the world is pick a quarterback, right? Because everybody's, there's a bunch of 49er fans. I'm not saying it's a majority, but there's this group who's always on, talking about how bad Shanahan is. And I just are you kidding me? Shanahan's a bad coach. And then they point out how he didn't pick the quarterback and got Trey Lance wrong and all this. And it's like, folks, picking a
That's
quarterback
an organizational thing, though, too. It's not
but
just the
he
head
did. I mean,
coach.
look, Kyle has to own that pick. Okay, let's not get it wrong. He has to own that pick, and that's fine.
So does John Lynch, though.
Sure, they have to own the pick. That and it's screwed up. But I was good at this, and Al Davis was as great a football mind as you will ever find. Okay,
agreed.
Fantastic football mind. His first round picks at quarterback were, respectively, Mark Wilson, Todd Marinovich, and Jamarcus Russell. Couldn't have picked a quarterback to save his life as in terms of the draft. He went out and got Jim Plunkett off the scrap heap. He got Darryl LaMonica in a trade. Kenny Stabler he found in the second round and went back and forth with him. Every decent quarterback Al Davis ever had was a guy that they found somewhere. He couldn't pick him. All right, not with high picks.
Even Blanda was a Houston Oiler.
Right. So Blake Bortles, okay, they give it a whack. It didn't work. They gave it another whack with Trevor Lawrence. They didn't get scared off by the pick. They took the right guy. They got Cope. And yeah, Jacksonville is relevant. But I will say this at the end of the day, it's still Jacksonville. It's still a dump.
Worst Super Bowl I ever went to, man. When someone goes like this,
your
hotel's on a boat. Hey, your
hotel. How can you be that close to the ocean? How can you be on the water and still be a dump?
Dude, Jace, your hotel room's on a boat. I'm going home to Orlando. I'm not going on that boat. How about this one here? Two last ones here for you. How about this one? So Jim Irsay goes to Shane Steichen and goes to Chris Ballard and demands that the kid be named the starting quarterback. That's the word inside the building.
Of course. Well, I mean, he didn't have to demand it. He said it after the draft. I mean, I give Jim Irsay, it's bad, but I also give Jim Irsay credit that he at least worked in football ops at one point in his life. Okay, but it's a bad decision. I will say, in some ways, it probably is a good. Like, just get him out there and see what he's capable of to see how much work he has to do. Because, okay, he goes out there and he's runs around. And predictably, after 5 or 6 games, he's going to be so in over his head, you're going to have to bench him. And then go back to see what does he have to learn. That team's not going to be very good anyways. And Gardner Minshew isn't the answer.
No. But their first 3 games, they got the Jags, Texans, and then they got the Ravens. I mean, you put a kid who had 51% completion percentage at Florida into a position where he's going to be playing against some pretty good football teams and good coordinators.
Well, he's going to be, no matter who he plays, he's going to be playing against pretty good football teams. I don't like it, but I don't know that it's much different. Whenever he gets into play, you and I both know there's not going to be any magic to it where he's going to suddenly come in and just tear it up passing wise. He may run around and make plays physically because he's gifted, but he's not going to tear anybody up throwing the ball. So get him in there and get some reps under his belt and let him learn. Everything I've ever heard about the kid is he's an earnest kid, and let him see what this is about, and let him see. You're not going anywhere this year. Don't kid yourself. That's why Jonathan Taylor didn't have any leverage. They're not going anywhere. So, find out about the quarterback.
I got one last one here for you. I love talking Hall of Fame with you here. Do you agree that the last 3 players at this position on the Veterans Committee will probably look at other guys like O.J. Anderson and all that? Do you agree that Frank Gore, Adrian Peterson, and Derrick Henry will be the last 3 running backs moving forward that you will have to look at that will be Hall of Fame consideration because of the dying position?
Oh, I don't know. There's always guys like Derrick.
Or will you change the requirements to more like looking at guys like McCaffrey who are more versatile in a time of today where maybe 1,100 yards wasn't important, 800 yards rushing, 900 yards receiving, 800 yards like that.
Look, I love Christian McCaffrey. He's a Stanford guy. I'm not sure he's a Hall of Famer yet.
But I'm saying the game's going towards him, though.
Right, the game is going toward that. But you're also got every few years you get a Bijan Robinson that you think that's going to be the next guy. Every few years you get a Derrick Henry who's so dominant and so big, or an Adrian Peterson who's so dominant and so big that teams just build their offenses around him. I think there's always going to be guys who come out who are like
outliers.
That. Right, because and as when you have outliers, you change what you do because the outlier can dominate so much, right? Tennessee was competitive for a couple of years with Derrick Henry playing the style that they did, pound it in there, because the rest of the league was playing small on defense, that they could take advantage of most teams that didn't have the kind of rugged run defense to handle them. So you'll get a guy like that. So I hate to say that's the last. We're not going to have as many. There just aren't, there just aren't guys like that. I mean, there aren't human beings. Frank Gore is a rare human being in his ability to take that kind of punishment.
He's going to be a pretty tough guy to look at, even though you look up and you go, shit, he's third. What do you want from me? I mean, longevity has to matter. Was he the dominant back, though? And look,
no,
I love the kid.
Yeah, right.
But he was never the dominant back at any time in his career.
He had 1 year where he had 1,500 yards or something like that.
1,600.
And he was awesome that year. But yeah, he's not even quite as dominant, as consistent as Curtis Martin.
Right.
But look, at a certain point, longevity matters. I always come back to this. I grew up in Los Angeles as an LA Dodgers fan. Don Sutton was never the dominant pitcher in any year that he played.
He was no Drysdale.
He was never Drysdale. He was never Koufax. He wasn't even really as good as Andy Messersmith.
Yeah.
And I'm going way back in the day.
Or Fernando.
Right. He wasn't like that. But he took the ball every fifth day for 22 years. And
300 some odd wins, man.
326, I think, if I remember correctly. 3,000 strikeouts, 55 or 6 shutouts. He was a workhorse. And at a certain point, longevity does matter. And you are worthy, based on longevity and consistency, of getting into the Hall of Fame. Were you electric? No. Did you ever have runs like Adrian Peterson where you just, the safety thought they had the angle on you and you just outran the angle? Or you came up in the hole and safety came up against Adrian Peterson and he just blew him up?
Are you going to use that same philosophy with Eli?
There's going to be a tough argument, man. That's why Eli's tough, man.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he is. Isn't that crazy? At the
end of the day, 2 Super Bowls does matter.
And MVPs.
And I will also say this about Eli Manning. And this is a good argument for Eli Manning. And again, I'm on your side where I'm like, I just don't quite get it.
117 and 117.
But I will also say this. Playing your entire career in New York and handling that crap that can get thrown at you and being able to stand there and take it week after week after week when things aren't going well and be the same guy even when things are going great, right? New York can beat down some guys,
Is Rivers better than him? Because this is the argument from that 2004 draft. If Rivers is in New York, I think he wins more Super Bowls. The Spanos family was never going to help anybody there.
That's such a tough thing because does Philip handle playing in New York?
No.
I don't know. Philip is a pretty tough-minded guy.
But he's pretty emotional too, and he's a shit talking guy, and they could have gotten the best of him.
Yeah, I mean, I would be trash because he never swore in his life.
No, it's the craziest thing. I know Philip kind of well, and I covered him, and here it'd be stuff like this. Hey, gosh dang it, you ain't got no game. Shut your hole, man. What are you talking about here?
Right. It was like it was the most polite trash talk of all time.
Oh my God, he's the greatest, like non-swearing trash talker I've ever heard talk. I'm like,
yeah, because he's like getting you pissed off.
Just mother effed me for like 20 minutes, and I go, I don't swear, and I'm going like this. I go like this.
I think I misquoted him one time on the word heck versus hell. I typed out hell, and it was in
he's a heck.
Oh, it was a heck. It was definitely a heck, and I put hell in there, and he read it and had the PR people call me and want me to correct it. Like that's how. I was like, "You're right. You're right."
You think he's a Hall of Famer?
I'm sort of in the same place with Philip as I am with Eli. Like, it wasn't quite enough. I'd like to say yes, because I really, there's a personal side of it. Is I really like the guy. I really like Eli too. I think Eli's a really good dude, and you want to say yes, but you have to go. There's an enforcement of standard. Like we just got Buddy Parker thrown in our laps today as the contributor candidate. Sure, I don't know if you saw that, but
I didn't.
He made the contributor as the candidate for contributors today over guys like Robert Kraft and Mike Shanahan and Mike Holmgren and Tom Coughlin.
Buddy who?
Buddy Parker. He won back-to-back. He was a coach who won back-to-back titles with the Lions in 52 and 53. But he was a horrendous coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the late 50s and 60s. And I mean, I always go back to
I've never heard of him.
Buddy Parker won back-to-back titles in 52 and 53.
I heard of Schmidt
with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, but I never heard of Buddy Parker. So
Buddy Parker, you can look it up. I don't know if he was the guy who won their last title. Schmidt was the guy they won one in 57.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know who the coach
was in 50. Yeah, they won in 57. Right. That's right. When
right, and then they won in 60. Right? Yeah. So, like, I look at it and I go, Buddy Parker versus Mike Shanahan?
No way.
I just don't see it. Like Buddy Parker versus George Seifert.
How does that?
Like, I know I'm not a George Seifert guy, right? I don't believe that but George Seifert's close. And like this, I have the same kind of gut reaction when people say George Seifert as when you say Eli Manning or you say,
Buddy
Philip Rivers.
Parker, to me, is not better than Marty Schottenheimer.
Well, I always go two things about Buddy Parker. And I have actually studied Buddy Parker for other reasons. I've researched it.
Did he have a winning record?
Yeah, he had a winning record, and that's fine. But I always look at the people who were the writers and voters when he was first eligible, when his name was first coming up. Those guys determined he wasn't good enough. And they watched him work. They were aware of his work. And they didn't put him in. 50 years later, or 60 years later, people are coming back to me going, Buddy Parker. Like, wait a sec. I'm supposed to rewrite the history of the guys who used to do the job that I do now?
Good for you.
Said no?
Good for you.
I'm looking forward to the argument. I want to hear the presentation because, he did invent the 2-minute drill, which I kind of, I look at somebody was going to invent the drill. It happened to be him. But everybody was going to run a hurry up at some point in time if you got a score. Okay, I'll give him a little bit of credit. And back-to-back titles is something. But if you go back to that era, there were a lot of guys who won back-to-back titles before 1960. Even before 1970, there were a lot of guys who won back-to-back titles because it wasn't as hard. It was a 12-team league. It wasn't a 30-team league. Mike Shanahan won back-to-back Super Bowls in a 32-team league. That's a hell of an accomplishment. George
Absolutely.
Seifert won it in a 30-team league. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Jace, I love talking football with you, man. Shit, man. Thanks for dropping that knowledge. I'm going to go and study the guy now for the Lions, and I'm going to take a look at that. And
It's an interesting case.
It is.
And
I get
want
it.
to hear it.
But I like your take on it. Why should I be asked to go back and change history of what people during the era saw? I'm supposed to see something different 40, 50 years later. I think it's a great argument, man. And I think that's why people look at you and some of the other guys that look at the people and go, hey, let's keep this thing on the rails here. And that's not like start making this thing a mockery. Jace, I got to roll, man.
All right,
hey,
dude. I'll talk to you.
Thank you, brother. That was awesome stuff, man. I so love talking football with Jason Cole there. Hey, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you again. Please do me a favor. Make sure you hit the like button. Jason was awesome. Plus, we had Merrill Reese on earlier with us. Xander, Joe, thank you very much. Tone, wow, what a great day for Tone. Kicked it around with the Sports Take guys. He was wonderful there. He's always great here. Thank you. Thank you, Tone. Keep it up, brother. 3 to 6 tomorrow, and we shall see you on the flip side.